Hey folks, Nathan here. Welcome to Nate's Favorite Deck Building Games, and this time we continue our look at Star Realms with something that I've been very excited about, which is Star Realms Frontiers. This is the newest base set, but in this episode we're going to take a look not just at this, but at all the cool stuff available thanks to the Kickstarter designed to launch Frontiers. Yes, all the Kickstarter stuff was finally shipped out. A lot of it in one giant box arrived for me, so we're going to be taking a look here at Frontiers, at scenarios, at the new command decks, at the universal storage box, at all kinds of promos, some Kickstarter exclusives, a lot of stuff in this episode of Nate's Favorite Deck Building Games. But we'll start by looking at Frontiers itself. We'll start here looking at Frontiers. It's the newest core set that you can have for Star Realms here. Notice it is in the wider box. It's the type of box they've used for their other game, Hero Realms. By comparison, the earlier sets like Colony Wars are basically half the size, which kind of makes sense because this is designed for up to 4 players, whereas the starter decks for the regular Star Realms and Star Realms Colony Wars were only designed for 2 each. Now that's going to change some of the numbers we have for some of the stuff that's included. So typically we're going to need Explorers, our always available card, and our Vipers and our Scouts that are going to give us our combat and our trade in the starter decks. Well, for Explorers this time we have a total of 16 instead of only 10, right? They didn't double the amount for double the players, but they did increase it. They did, however, pretty much because they had to, right, in order to have enough cards for starter decks, double the amount of Vipers and Scouts that we get within this set. So instead of 16 Scouts, we have 32. Instead of only 4 Vipers, we have 8. Now, as far as new cards for the actual trade deck, we've got a total of 80. And it really only introduces one new major mechanic. I've got a couple of example cards here that we can look at. One's a base, one's just a regular ship, trying to make sure we know that this can happen in either case. We're used to the idea of the ally ability, right? So I play this card while there's already another card out there that has the blob affiliation, or I play this card and later play something with the blob affiliation. Order does not matter. As soon as there are more than one of a given affiliation, I can bust out my ally ability at any point during the turn. Well, this game is adding in the idea of a double ally ability, which, like you would imagine, instead of requiring 1 more of the same faction, requires 2 more. So if I've got 3 blobs out there, including this one at least, I can do his regular ability as soon as I play it. I can activate that ally ability as soon as there are at least 2 of them, this one and one other. And as soon as there are at least 3 of them, this one and 2 others, I can activate that one. So this card could give me 3 trade or destroy target base, and then give me up to 6 combat just off the 1 card. Many bases work the same way. You've got a single ally ability and double ally ability there on the card, along with the regular one that's used as soon as it's played. Or in the case of a base, on subsequent turns as long as it is still in play. Now you may recall that in the past, in order to keep track of your authority, your health, you essentially had these scorecards from the previous games, 5 on one side, 1 on the other, 20 on one side, 10 on the other, and you had basically a stack of these that added up to give you your health. But it was kind of a pain in the butt to constantly have to go through and count all those cards up to figure out your health versus your opponents. It was just easier to track on paper. Well, in that case, they have again sort of revised things to go in more of a Hero Realms direction, in that now we have only 8 scorecards. They're in sets of 2, so let's grab our blue pair here and use that as our example. One card is going to have 0 through 9 on one side, 0 through 9 on the other, but a plus 80 for those formats that have much higher authority. Then you're going to have a card that going around one side, you have 0, 10, 20, 30. On the other side, 40, 50, 60, 70. And in order to show the amount of health you have, or the amount of authority you have, let's say you have 75, you simply show 70 next to the 5, right? Maybe it's 155, 70, and 5 on the side with the plus 80. Pretty simple, much easier and faster to keep track of health without having to constantly recount it. Still probably easier to do on paper, but a much more efficient method than those scorecards before, again, owing to the design of their other game, Hero Realms. We also have a total of 8 oversized challenge cards. Okay? 2 of these, by the way, I'll mention these when we get to the Kickstarter stretch goals, but Nemesis Beast and, let's see, Pirates of the Dark Star, both of these had smaller regular-sized versions back in the Gambits expansion, but they are included. This was originally meant to be only one challenge card, and it was meant to be regular size. As the stretch goals progressed, it increased from 1 to 8 for everybody who buys Frontiers, not just those who back the Kickstarter, and the size was increased from a regular size to these larger cards. We'll talk about that again as we talk about the stretch goals. We also have an updated rulebook. Not a lot of major changes, it just has to talk about double ally and stuff like that, but it is a regular rulebook, which is nice. You may recall that originally we basically got a fold-out set of multiplayer rules with the previous two sets, and a similar fold-out set of regular rules, which meant that space was somewhat limited. Now, we've got basically all the regular rules up into about the midpoint, around the staple in the booklet, along with the multiplayer formats suggested, which are all essentially the same formats we've seen before. Then we get into the solo and cooperative challenge modes, and it actually talks about those, how they work, changing their difficulty, and so forth. And then for each of those challenge scenarios, it gives you a setup, sort of a story background, information about how the boss of the scenario will play, and so on, as you eventually get to the back of the book. And for the first time, other than on their website, they're giving us the background of the 4 factions and sort of how they fit into the broader Star Realms universe. Much, much nicer to have this as a rule booklet instead of little fold-outs. Even Hero Realms started out with a fold-out, but it was this size and folded out. It really wasn't until Ruins of Thandar, or the Ruin singular of Thandar for Hero Realms, the campaign deck, that they switched to something more like this. So it's nice to see Frontiers getting a regular rulebook. So not a lot of changes to the game itself, but we do have a new way of keeping track of our health, which is a little bit more efficient. We are having a starting box that actually is meant for 4 players instead of just 2. We've got the oversized challenge cards, which are a nice addition, and within all of our trade row cards or our trade deck, we will have some of those cards that have the double ally ability. Not major changes to the format of Star Realms, but some nice additions and tweaks to give us a set that for many will probably be the ideal starting point rather than picking up either the original or Colony Wars at this point. Alongside Frontiers, they've released another series of small expansions known as Command Decks. 6 of these are given wide release. One of them is a Kickstarter exclusive. The Kickstarter exclusive is Lost Fleet. The other ones are all dual faction command decks. So the Alliance is made up of the Star Empire and Trade Federation working together. The Union is the Blobs and the Star Empire. The Alignment is the Star Empire and Machine Cult. The Pack, the Blobs and Trade Federation. The Coalition, Trade Federation and Machine Cult. Unity, Machine Cult and Blobs. And then Lost Fleet is essentially a factionless group. But again, that is the Kickstarter exclusive. And they all work in a similar way, so we only really need to look at one of these to get a sense of how it's going to impact gameplay. Okay, so it's a little bit odd. A command deck, though, is kind of like a character pack for Hero Realms. Again, they're really kind of taking the mechanics from one and sort of blending it into the other to enhance the options for both games. What we're looking at here is the Alliance command deck, which is the Star Empire and the Trade Federation working together in the so-called Alliance. Originally, these were meant to be 17 cards per command deck, but thanks to the stretch goals, they wound up adding an 8-cost ship into each of the command decks. So you'll notice here, it's actually the only card that has a trade cost at all. You know, there's a reason for that. Basically what this is something that's going to give you some gambits, which are sort of special things that your commander can do, give you some changing conditions as far as your health and what you can do, and completely changes at least one player's starting deck. So in this case, with Fleet Director Nandi, that is who you're playing as. Right? And Fleet Director Nandi has 68 starting authority instead of 50, has a hand of 5 cards, and these just sort of tell us which factions are involved, but this doesn't count as a card being played for ally abilities with the symbols that are up there or anything like that. And it gives you some rule reference there on the back. When she's being played, you, the Nandi player, get to put out these 2 gambits in front of you to be able to use. We have Alliance Procurement and Nandy's Onslaught. So those are available to you as you play. You're going to track your health, because it's not the standard amount of health, on a separate customized version of those health or authority cards. So you've got one that's got the plus 80 if needed. It's got the 0 through 9 on the sides and whatnot. And then you also have your card with her on it that has all the other numbers you need on the sides. The reason why the 60 there is kind of in gold and the 8 on the one side of this is in gold is because her starting authority is 68. It just makes it easier to very quickly set it up. Now the Super Freighter, that's that 8-cost special ship card that was added thanks to the stretch goals that now everybody who gets these command decks will be able to get. That gets put directly into the trade deck. So that is available to anyone if they wind up being able to afford it when it's in the trade row. But all these other cards, Diplomatic Shuttle, Cargo Boat, Federation Scout, Imperial Viper, Ranger, Stellar Falcon, Tribute Transport, the 4 Scouts, and the 1 Viper here. You're like, Scouts and Vipers, haven't we already seen those a ton? Of course we have. But why are they here? It is so that all of those cards that don't have cost listed can come together and be the starting deck for the player playing as Nandi. Now this is designed so that basically you can play as one commander versus another, so one command deck versus another command deck as the starting decks and the gambits and everything with the new heroes and whatnot here, the new commanders as they're called. Or you can play with one player playing as one of these type of characters with a command deck against 2 other players playing with regular starting decks. But those 2 other players play under what are called the Hydra rules in Frontiers, which essentially gives them a combined authority of 75 and winds up giving them the ability to trade and pass back and forth some of their resources during gameplay. Essentially, the other players play as a team without having shared decks, but with having a shared turn. So they can coordinate their efforts and again, pass along resources like trade or combat throughout the gameplay as needed to get the most out of their shared turn as they fight against that commander. Makes for an interesting new way to play. Turns out you only need one of these to be able to play as long as you're playing against 2 other players or another player maybe playing as 2 different regular players with 2 different decks. But ideally, you'd be playing one commander versus another commander and getting the most out of this particular set of expansions. But they all pretty much work like this. A new starting deck for the person playing the commander, a card that represents them, a couple of gambits, with the gambits also having some rule information on the back, specialized damage cards / health cards, whatever you want to call them, authority cards, and then that one card that gets slipped in there thanks to the stretch goals. For what it's worth, since at least at this point it doesn't look like this is going to be available to anyone outside of the Kickstarter backers, I will go ahead and show you here what the Lost Fleet command deck includes in case you happen to run into these cards in the future. We have 3 copies of Assault Shard, we have 2 copies of Command Shard, 3 copies of Recon Shard, 3 copies of Salvage Shard, 3 copies of Transport Shard, which are all going to combine together to give us that starting deck for our new commander. We have our cost 8 stretch goal card here that goes into the trade deck, which is Lost Dreadnought, which is factionless. We have 2 gambits again, Splinter Tech and Jockum's Grand Design. We have our commander, High Admiral Jockum, who has 72 authority here, a hand size of 7, and no factions. Rule supplement on the back we'll get to in just a second. And then he has his specialized damage cards. Now, what's interesting is that Splinter ability. You were used to seeing that silver icon and the trash can symbol, meaning scrap this card, basically put it out of play into the scrap heap in order to get that ability. This one instead has this weird Triforce looking thing on it. What does that mean? That is the Shard ability. And basically you get whatever that is if you can put 3 cards of the same name into the discard pile at that point. Not out of the game, not scrapping them, just into the discard pile. So let's say I'm playing with Assault Shard. I play this one, I get 1 combat. I play this one, I get 1 combat. I play this one, I get 1 combat. But now, if I take all 3 of those of the same name and put them straight into my discard pile, then I get 4 combat extra. You don't get it for each one, you get it for 1, because the other 2 being discarded with that one counts as activating that ability. But it gives you the ability to essentially get extra bang out of some of these cards. Most of them have a shard ability, but the command shard up here does not, nor does that Lost Dreadnought, because, well, the obvious, right? If you have to discard 3, then a card that only has 2 of it or 1 of it can't discard 3. Shard ability wouldn't make sense. Also available through Kickstarter was a Kickstarter exclusive pack called Stellar Allies. It includes 2 multi-faction groups within its cards, and it's the 2 multi-faction combinations that we didn't get in the United expansion series. That is where we have the Blobs and the Trade Federation combined, or the Star Empire and Machine Cult combined. So we got the pack, of course, a little guide to the faction pairs and an advertisement for United on the back, and then we got 2 copies each of Alignment Bot, Needle Lancer, Pact Warship, Pact Pod, and then 1 each of 4 new bases, 2 of which are outposts. Those are the Citadel and Missile Silo, and then 2 that are just regular bases, Summit Site and Trade Hive. Again, this is a Kickstarter exclusive pack. Now, another item I picked up at the time that the Kickstarter was going on as one of the add-ons that I added was something that I actually have never seen out in the wild before, something I've never been able to actually pick up directly myself, so I went ahead and just picked it up through the Kickstarter. It's only been recently that I've actually seen stores actually show them as in stock online, but I still haven't seen one in person outside the one that I got through the Kickstarter. And that is a set for 2017 called Scenarios. It sets up situations that are in play during the game that oftentimes has something to do before the game starts or after players have drawn their starting hands before the first turn occurs. Just sort of changing up the rules and giving unusual situations. There are 20 of them. I'm not going to go into the names of all of them because these are not Kickstarter exclusives, only to note that 18 of them can be played with any number of players, whereas early recruitment and picking sides are designed specifically for a 2-player game. If you draw them for a multiplayer game, you're supposed to just toss them out and draw again. But Scenarios is now apparently more widely available than it was at first, either through the Kickstarter in my case, or in theory elsewhere if you've been looking for it. Also available through the Kickstarter, but not as Kickstarter exclusives, we have the Year 2 promo cards. And in this case, it's a fairly even distribution of cards. That pack includes a total of 12. We have 1 5-cost ship for each of the 4 regular factions, Bounty Hunter, Cargo Mech, Night Star, and Stellar Ray, and then 2 copies each of a 2-cost or a 2-trade ship for each faction, Federal Transport, Probot, Imperial Smuggler, and Warkite. Also available for the first time thanks to the Kickstarter process is the Universal Storage Box, a nice gigantic box to put all your cards in. This is the lid here. The interior, nice and large, 3 nice rows to put all your cards in, several foam dividers, a total of 6, and in theory, if you put your cards on one side or the other, or just those 2, you could use the middle one or any of them as you switch them around for a rolled up playmat, which is nice because it does fit the playmat size as well, as you can see when I turn it vertically here. But it isn't just a storage box. It actually comes with some promo cards and dividers to use when sorting your collection. Now, I would point out that it is a fairly blob-heavy set of promo cards. We have the Embassy Transport, 2 copies of it for the Trade Federation, and 2 copies of Orbital Crane for the Star Empire. We have 2 copies of Recovery Mech for the Machine Cult, and everything else is for the Blobs. We have 2 copies of Brooder, 1 copy of Mutant Drone, 3 copies of Warrior Drone, 2 copies of Worker Drone, and 1 copy of Young Queen, all included with the storage box. We then have a total of 30 dividers. We have all 3 of the core sets represented, Star Realms, Colony Wars, and Frontiers, both Gambit sets, Gambit and Cosmic Gambit. We have personal decks, but not divided between the card types, Explorers and Scorecards, but not divided between the different scorecard types, the 4 Crisis expansion packs, the 4 United expansion packs, Scenarios, 1 for general promos, 1 for the specific promo set 1 pack, one for Stellar Allies, one for the trade deck if you've already got one built and you've packed it, Universal Storage Box cards, that's the promos from this one blank one to use for whatever, and ones for all of the different command decks, including the Kickstarter exclusive Lost Fleet. Now I would note that there's not that much Star Realms stuff out there yet. This is everything packed into the box, with both of these rows completely empty with room for something like a playmat and plenty of more expansions to come. You won't need another one of these in quite a while. The only downside, you are going to have to store your challenge cards for Frontiers sideways in one place or another. For me, I'm just going to keep them inside the Frontiers box for now and just stick it in there sideways to protect them. I also have the rule supplements packed in there as well. A nice way to keep them safe. Now let's talk Kickstarter stretch goals for the Star Realms Frontier set. There were a lot of them, and every single one that was added was met. So it's a lot of stuff, much of which is going to be a Kickstarter exclusive. A few things to keep in mind. Some of these things are not going to be Kickstarter exclusives because it's going to be something that actually adds something into the Frontiers box for everybody who ever gets it, or into command decks for everybody who ever gets those. Then there'll be others that are, for the most part, going to be Kickstarter exclusives. But eventually, they could be reissued, but they would be reissued with alternate art, as they've done with some promo cards before, so that the ones from Kickstarter are still considered unique. I would also note here that even though there's a ton of stuff I'm showing you right now on the screen, there's actually more. So we'll have a second screen that'll allow us to pin down a few of the last goals here. But just running through these fairly quickly, hopefully, for 133,000 as the first stretch goal, we got Blockade Runner, a cost 1 ship there for Star Empire. For 171,000, Recyclebot for Machine Cult, 200,000, Cargo Rocket for the Trade Federation, and 237,000 Plague Pod for the Blobs. So basically what we got is a set of 4 cards, each one being a new 1-cost ship for each of the regular 4 factions. Now, the regular set for Frontiers was always going to have 1 challenge card, but it was going to be regular sized, and we don't know exactly which one of the challenge cards it was going to be, but there was going to just be 1 to start with. But at 265,000, once that stretch goal was crossed, they added another one, and we're just going to put these in mostly random order here. They added another challenge into the Frontiers box, not just for Kickstarter backers, but for everyone. Then we had Imperial Defender unlocked at 300,000. At 334,000, Temple Guardian. So we're starting out another run of cards for each faction, this time cost 3. Then at 367,000, another challenge, bringing the total in the box to 3. One that was already going to be there, and 2 others, but so far, they were supposed to still be regular sized. 403,000 brought us Freight Raft. 436,000 brought us Sentinel, rounding out those cost 3s for the 4 different factions. And then at 462,000, they took the 4 1-cost promo cards that had already been made as stretch goals, and instead of giving us 1 of each, now gave us 3 total of each. Then at 502,000, we had our first of the new bases, in this case an outpost, Midgate Station. At 531,000, we had Converter. And then at 564,000, they decided to add another of the challenge cards. Notice this one's sideways, so you can kind of see the relative size here compared to some other sideways cards. But that also was the moment at which all of the challenge cards became large size instead of regular size. Then at 604,000, we got Acer 4. And then at 633,000, Swarming Point. So now we had a cost 5 base for each faction, although the Midgate Station one is an outpost, not just a regular base. At 668,000, they then took the next batch of 4 promo cards, the 3-cost ones, Imperial Defender, Temple Guardian, Freight Raft, and Sentinel, and in each of those cases now gave us 2 copies instead of 1. Then at 699,000, we started getting cost 7 ships with Demolisher. At 732,000, they added 2 more challenges into the mix for the Frontiers box, and this time they actually named which ones they were, Pirates of the Dark Star and Nemesis Beast. Then at $765,000, another 7-cost ship, the Assimilator. Then at $800,000, we got our first stretch goal event card with Mobilization. $835,000 brought another 7-cost ship, Trade Envoy. And then the 7-cost ships rounded out at the $866,000 stretch goal with Swarming Worm. Then at $901,000, they added 2 more challenge cards. Now this did finish the challenge cards for the Frontiers box, but it means that it went from originally expected to have 1 that was regular size to now having 8 for everyone, which are all large-sized cards. Next up at $934,000, they added 2 new event cards, 1 copy of each, Super Flare and Wormhole. At $967,000, they had the so-called 6 event promo cards level, and that was basically 3 different promo cards for events, each of which had 2 copies. So we have Tactical Maneuver, Supply Run, and Recon Mission. And that brings us to the last of the stretch goals at 1,000K. In other words, $1 million in this Kickstarter, which brings us the mega ships. One of the mega ships was only going to be included in the promo pack with all the Kickstarter promo cards, and that is the 9-cost factionless ship known as the Colossus. But along with that, they added 1 8-cost dual faction ship to all of the dual faction command decks that were released alongside Frontiers. That's what we're going to take a look at now. So again, at the $1 million mark, alongside the 9-cost The Colossus ship that has no faction, each of the command decks got an 8-cost battleship of some kind. And again, we have 6 of these command decks that are going to be widely available for purchase anywhere, which means that 6 of these will wind up being available to anyone. The Lost Fleet command deck, though, remember, is a Kickstarter exclusive, so not only is this a stretch goal, it's also a stretch goal that's exclusive to a Kickstarter exclusive pack. What we got for the Unity was Mech Worm, for the Coalition, Mech Command Ship, for the Pact, Super Carrier, for the Alignment, Mech Battleship, for the Union, Meganaut, for the Alliance, Super Freighter, and for the Kickstarter exclusive Lost Fleet, we got Lost Dreadnought. And as if that wasn't enough, inside with the promo pack, we had this little card that has some rules supplement information, but also a message from the game's creator. And it says, as a thank you for your patience and support, we've added a few extra promo cards. Which were those? It's 3 cards that are all events that sort of reference Kickstarter backers. We have 2 copies of an event called Powerful Backing, get it? And 1 called Patience Rewarded. So an absolute ton of stretch goal material provided as promo cards in most cases, and cards for regular purchasers across the board in a few other cases, all for backers of Star Realms Frontiers. So plenty of new Star Realms stuff is coming your way very soon, if not already. And if you happen to back the Kickstarter, you've got a lot to play with at this point. So with that, we'll cut it here so you can go play. I'm certainly going to. In the future, we will be taking a look at that other game from the same company that borrows some of the same mechanics and then donated some, so to speak, to Frontiers, Hero Realms. Stay tuned.